everyone. That's Palestinian for hello, Palestinian Arabic for hello in the plural sense. Having stayed in Palestine for a good chunk of the semester while I was in seminary, immersing academically, theologically, spiritually, and culturally, I was enriched with eye-opening experiences. Well, for one, I quickly discovered how the Palestinian people are some of the friendliest, most hardworking, and most peace-loving people you could ever meet. But sadly, they're also the most politically abused and degraded people by far. It was heartbreaking to see, for example, with my very own eyes, an Orthodox Jew spitting on a random and innocent Palestinian who knew better than to retaliate. And in another instance, an Orthodox woman from a building above throwing acid on a Palestinian vendor's market stall, unprovoked, with my own eyes. The evil of humanity against humanity happening in the Holy Land is truly heart-wrenching, but that's another topic for another time. On a lighter note, did you know that in Palestine, in the time of Jesus, the fields of grain and the cultivated fields were laid out in long strips, and the ground between the strips was always a right-of-way, meaning any passerby, or like a hungry traveler, for example, could lawfully pick the heads of grain as long as they use only their hands, not a sickle. And it was in one of these strips that the disciples and Jesus were walking when the Pharisees spotted them in the act of picking grain. Well, technically, the disciples were not stealing anything, but their fault was that they had reaped, threshed, and winnowed the grain on the Sabbath. On top of that, they were guilty of preparing a meal, which constitutes work. You see, that's how strict and complex the Sabbath law was, where anything which might symbolically be regarded as work was prohibited. And get this, it was forbidden even to carry a burden. Isn't that crazy? And how did they define a burden? Well, it was anything which weighed as much as 2 dried figs. But Jesus puts the Pharisees in their place by drawing attention to one of the Sabbath's main purposes, mercy. He teaches the Pharisees a lesson by pointing out the fact that King David himself did not strictly follow rabbinical teachings about the Sabbath when they were faced with hunger. And by the same token, the disciples were hungry too, right? We just heard that. So yes, the religious practice of the traditions are important. But the Pharisees fail to recognize a new tradition, one that is grounded in mercy, not sacrifice. Now, by no means is this gospel telling us that law is not important. All social organizations require rules, some arbitrary, but nevertheless useful. When we adhere to the law, we are able to create a society where each of us has the freedom to be all that God created us to be. God does not intend his law to deprive, but rather to ensure life. When law is grounded in biblical truth, it becomes a portal to reflect the glory of God. It is never, ever to be a tool of control or mechanism to manipulate, degrade, or hurt others. For that would not be the law of a loving God and neighbor. And the one sure law that bears no exception is the law of loving God and neighbor.
Thank you for participating in this production of our virtual Mass. Your presence means so much. Every day, so many parishioners connect to OLPH through the digital ministry. The digital ministry is one of almost 80 ministries supported by the parish. That's why your support of the parish is crucial, so we can continue to have the resources to fund all of our ministries that touch the lives of many. Thank you for watching. Continue to watch. And thanks again for your support.